talking about SNL, the history, the mysteries, and all the hot impressions in between, breaking down all the numbers as well. In your favorite sketches with special guests, it's on the Saturday Night Network.
Welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for another one of our Monday night SNL roundtables, here to talk about the Miles Teller and Brandi Carlile episode of Saturday Night Live, season 51, episode 4. My name is Jon Schneider from the SNN. Very pumped to be back with you to talk about another new episode of Saturday Night Live from this fascinating season. We are, of course, here as a presentation of LateNighter.com, and we got a great panel with us, and I see the live chat's already buzzing. So first up, let's bring in Zoe Walker is here. Zoe, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. I'm glad that the season has started, and I'm glad that it's cold outside and I'm sitting under a blanket. So I'm just all cozy and ready to talk about SNL.
Yes, I'm excited to talk to you, Zoe. And this guy's been cozy for 3 days now as he's been celebrating his Dodgers winning the World Series. So congratulations, Bill Kenney.
John, thank you. That was one of the wildest Saturday nights of my entire life. I've never had anything like that happen. The closest, I guess, would be Kirk Gibson's home run in '88. But, kids, World Series was on NBC in 1988, and SNL was delayed by like 45 minutes. So I didn't even have the conflict. Saturday was just lots of buzzes and whistles. It was the first time I had to rewatch SNL immediately after watching it because I was so high from the baseball game. But yeah, thank you. And very excited to talk about a fun episode of SNL too.
Yeah, it was a wild Saturday. I was also second screening. I was trying to figure out, like, do I put SNL on the TV or the computer or which one goes where? But like, that's life, right? Sometimes these things happen. It's the beauty of live television, whether it's sports or Saturday Night Live. So great to get to talk to you, Bill. Looking forward to your thoughts. And of course, joining us as well back in New York is Amanda Mitchell. Amanda, how are you?
I'm good. I'm home. Excited. It was a fabulous episode. I'm very excited to talk about these things. Like, a lot of little its and bits and little notes. I'm excited. Yes.
I'm excited to talk to you. I'm also excited to have a New Yorker on because obviously there's some New York centric material that we're going to go through tonight. So you're our New York expert on the panel here. But let's talk about Miles Teller first. So he first hosted the show back in the premiere of season 48, where it was our third season podcasting. And we were excited to talk about Miles getting a chance to host the show. There were some new cast members that were added. So it sort of felt like a little bit of a new era-ish at 48. And, similar vibes here, where we have a lot of new cast members for season 51. Miles Teller comes back at the start of the season. And I don't know that he was at the top of the board for a lot of people's picks to come back as a one-time host, but I think he's just generally pretty solid. When you saw him in SNL 50, the anniversary special, where he appeared in Bronx Speed, it was like, oh yeah, Miles Teller, like pretty decent host. He hosted a premiere, so sort of hard to judge him. But I always thought he was pretty solid. And Zoe, I thought he did a fantastic job this week. So were you excited when you heard Miles Teller was going to host the show?
Yes, I think he's a confident guy, and he kind of has this air that makes you feel comfortable watching him. And I grew up with him. He was in the Divergent series and a lot of movies in the 2010s. So I'm like, he's one of the heartthrobs of my youth. So he's important to me. And he was in the Gorge movie last year, which I might have been the only girl in the world to watch The Gorge on Apple TV Plus. But it is part of my vocabulary for the past year. Whenever I'm having a hard day, I say I'm jumping headfirst into the gorge, no parachute. And it's a reference that only I get. But I love that movie and I love Miles Teller. So I was excited to see him.
Yeah, Bill, I mean, again, when we talked about that premiere a few years ago, everyone was like, okay, well, Miles is pretty decent, but the premiere, it's a premiere, right? So it's just so hard to judge. But I felt like it was really cool this week that we got another opportunity to see him show what he can do at the show. And I think his legacy as a host on Saturday Night Live, even though it's just 2 times, significantly rose from this second appearance. How do you feel about him hosting the show this time?
Yeah, it's a game changer because, as you said, with that premiere, I mean, there were some good moments in that. The Be Real sketch stands out, and he held his own. But there was some really bad shit in that episode too, and nothing of his faults. It was, as you said, it was a premiere. They're feeling their way through it. Obviously, they had the Manning cast as well in that episode, so that was a pretty big deal that he was playing Peyton Manning. But yeah, I don't know that this was on anybody's radar, and to have him come back. Now he can be in the conversation with somebody who might come back a third or fourth time, because I think he did exceptionally well this week.
I would agree. He's also a huge fan of the show. We heard that in his monologue in season 48. And again, this time, which I think was, even though it was a little bit repetitive, it was still nice to get to hear that. It helps you as an SNL fan support people who love Saturday Night Live. Amanda, my experience with Miles Teller goes back to the days of him being in Project X. And I just thought that he was so funny in that movie. But he's obviously become one of the biggest stars in the world. Were you excited to see him back at the show?
I've seen previews for that movie he's promoting, which is the movie with Elizabeth Olsen, and I was like, Elizabeth Olsen, she was right there. Let her host SNL, but that's fine. I can't always get what I want. And Miles Teller is an exceptional number 2. I don't even know who the other guy in that movie is. God, sorry to that man. I'm trying. I bet you are famous to a certain niche of people, but I don't know your name offhand. Congratulations, but but I think that he did a really good job. I think it was a serviceable episode of SNL, and he was handed good material. And I actually think I don't think I've liked him this much on screen in a really long time, probably since Top Gun. And I think that I enjoyed this. It was nice. It was oh, he's suited here. He fits in here in a way that I was delightfully happy about. It was a little bit of a delight. I was an unexpected delight. And that's the way I'll describe it. Unexpected.
I think my biggest fear with Miles coming back was that he was going to be a bland, vanilla, very, just replacement level host. And I don't think he did that here. And I think what was interesting to me is that, we'll talk about this cold open with the appearances of people like Shane Gillis. But there was something that I felt when watching this episode that reminded me of how I felt when I watched Shane at the show. And they are two different categories of hosts, but they have this similarity in that there is sort of this alpha male presence that I feel like Miles brought to the show on Saturday night that I still think the cast is looking for. I still think that is something that we talk about sometimes when someone really old hosts the show. It's oh, good, because they're so different than the rest of the cast that they don't run into problems where another cast member could play the role that they're playing in a sketch. I feel that Miles held parts in sketches that other cast members didn't necessarily fill. So he fit in so well in this episode. And I think that really helped the quality of the show that we saw on Saturday. Bill, I know that's a conversation you and I have had a bunch over the last few years about finding that person to join this cast. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, very true. It's hard to imagine who else would have played Mario Cuomo, who would have played the cop in
Andrew Cuomo.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. R.I.P. Mario. He mentioned him in the cold open. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, in the Gargoyle, that was another role him and Zsasz kind of ran with, being the tough cops. Yeah, it is something that we don't really see in the show, and there's nobody you can point to in this current cast that really fits that role. Ever since Beck, really, that we've had somebody that could kind of play that alpha male.
Right. And Zoe, I almost feel that when we had talked about that with Shane, potentially, it's almost hard to imagine him in that role, even though he was almost a cast member, because there's such a bro-y aspect to that potential alpha male in a sketch. But Miles doesn't necessarily bring that. He's almost a degree less intense than Shane in maybe some of his performances. So for me, I almost feel that Miles is kind of a perfect host in a way. He's not going to blow you away. It's not going to be extraordinary, but he does a lot of things that we're looking for in a host. Do you feel similarly?
Yeah, I think he's kind of like a dreamy movie star who's stepping out of his comfort zone. And I think he carried it with confidence that could come as a second-time host, and also just a comfortability that let him be successful.
Yeah, I think so. All right, let's talk about the New York mayoral election cold open that we saw here this week, where we open up with Keenan, who's introducing the mayoral debate. And, this was something that we talked about a couple weeks ago during the Sabrina episode of well, are they going to even do this? They haven't really done a mayoral debate before, but, considering all the talk and popularity of Zoran, it sort of makes sense that they would try and do something or maybe even bring him in. But here we go. We have Miles Teller, our host, playing Andrew Cuomo, not Mario, at the start of this cold open. Then we have Rami Youssef, a former host from season 49, playing Zoran Mamdani. Shane Gillis is brought in, two-time host and former Almost cast member, to play Curtis Saliwa in this cold open. We're going to see Cam debut his impression of Eric Adams, and James as Trump, who comes in at the end. So they ended up doing this thing, Amanda, where a lot of people were clamoring for it. How do you feel like the results were from this cold open?
I thought it was unfortunately apt. Like it's very apt. The reason why I came home is to go vote. I'm going to go vote for the mayor. I'm going to go vote for Zoran tomorrow. I'm very excited. But I think that it was always nice to see a host in a role like Andrew Cuomo wishes. He looked like Miles Teller. He wishes, but he doesn't. It's fine. But I think that I think it really pointed out that like this cast, they need to get people to fill those, like, especially Zoran, you're going to need somebody in this cast to like really fill that. And I think that's a glaring an area that they're either going to ignore or they're going to have to do something about it. But we had the opportunity and got rid of that. Whoops. Sorry, Emil, miss you. But I also think that I liked it. There were funny jokes. There were jokes that I saw coming. It was a decent political cold open in a time where I don't really love a political cold open. I think having Trump come in at the end was kind of erroneous, but you know what? That's it, but I also made me really, really, really miss Chris Reddit as Eric Adams, because I think that he got that Eric Adams' smarminess down a little bit more that Cam doesn't really resonate with. It just happens that he's young and Keenan was doing something else. So
I thought Cam did a decent job. I'll play you the line that he said, Cam Patterson.
I, Eric Adams, endorse him, Zorgon Mammogram.
Like, I thought it was okay. I think there was, it did remind me a little bit of Chris Redd. Perhaps the impression was watched, before this, but I agree. There was definitely some like, oh yeah, Chris did a fantastic job with that impression. With regards to all the talk about Rami and Zoran, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I think for us as big fans of the show, we are all automatically going to think about Emil Joachim and his potential to have played Zoran if he was there on the cast. Is it possible that the show realizes that the other 99% doesn't think of that and is just happy to have someone like Rami Youssef, who has a pretty big following coming into the show, clearly has a strong relationship with Zoran, where you saw, if you looked on social media, there's this Instagram video that Zoran put together Rami put together talking to Zoran, where they're FaceTiming while Rami's in the Zoran makeup. So like there's like a social media aspect to this impression as well, where the show feels like somebody like a New York mayor that they may not need every episode, unlike the president, is something that you can bring in externally. It doesn't have to come from inside. So, Bill, how did you feel about this cold open overall, and specifically that impression?
I was kind of surprised at some of the discourse about like, how are they talking about a mayoral race? I mean, this is one of the biggest cities in the world. Like, this is the hub of America. And it's been brought into the spotlight because of Trump talking about it constantly, and all this terrible 9/11 stuff that they've said about Zoran and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, this is something SNL has done since the 70s, right? Bella Abzug came on in a cameo when they didn't do cameos, running for mayor, first female to run for mayor in New York City, and was with Emily Latella in that sketch. And I mean, all the way through Ed Koch and that other guy that hosted in the 90s that we won't talk about. But other than it being that's the name, 9 minutes long, crazy back, this is first era Trump cold opens here with how long it was. Other than that, I think this was very good. But yeah, it does speak to the glaring holes that people of color on SNL, we're going to have some issues going forward, but with both female African Americans and somebody like Zoran here.
Look, I think there is an argument that this debate cold open is one of the best they've done in years, because it wasn't a Trump debate. And, there's people who feel like that has sort of bogged down the, range that the political writing can have. And in this case, I think that they right away characterized and branded these three, mayoral, what do we call them? They're not contestants. What's the term?
Candidates, John.
Candidates. Thank you. That's the word that I'm looking for.
Just like Mario
Yes.
Cuomo. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. It's been a long Monday, but yeah, no. These candidates, they branded them and defined them very quickly. Where you understand, if you're not following New York politics, you understand that Andrew Cuomo, kind of has this sleazebaggy energy to him. There's Zoran, who's sort of being this romanticizing the election in a way.
Hey girl, I know you got a little white guilt for gentrifying that Spanish neighborhood, don't you?
And of course, Shane, who personally I think crushed this cold open. I think he was the best in this, where he's playing sort of like this nut job Curtis Sliwa in the way that he's playing him, at least. And he goes, obviously can't pronounce Zoran's name.
And I believe I'm saying this right, Zoltar Rob Zombie.
And will continue to tell crazy stories about his past.
As you know, in 1982, I had my penis cut off and fed to me by the Yakuza.
So I think that they did a really strong job with just as an audience explaining who these candidates are and building the comedy there. I am with you guys. I also think that Trump was very unnecessary to this cold open, but I do love everything we got till that point. Zoe, how did you feel about this cold open?
I mean, I agree with Bill. I thought it was way too long, but I just have a really short attention span, so that might just be me working against it. I thought that Rami was really strong in this. I thought he was really charming, and he made me fall in love with his character. I'm not really tapped into the New York elections because we have the Virginia ones going on right now, but the chaos in Shane's performance made me Google Curtis Sliwa because I was like, I need to know, is this real? Like, what's the accuracy level here? So I thought it was
Literally like that.
Yeah, that's what my research told me. But so I thought it was good because it had me tapped in and I wanted to know more. And it did keep me engaged, even though I felt myself zoning out there after about 5 minutes.
All right. So major question is, obviously we're going to remember this one for a long time because again, SNL doesn't really do, state mayoral or city mayoral election, debates and all of that for 51 years. So this was like pretty unprecedented from what we've seen on the show. Something that's not so unprecedented is having candidates appear on the show. So my question for you guys is that if Zoran goes on to win this thing this week, are we seeing him on the show next week? I'll go around the panel and get some guesses from you. So Zoe, what do you think?
I think probably not. I think this past Saturday was his chance to come on.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Bill, we have seen New York mayors host the show before, as you mentioned. We've seen cameos. We saw Bloomberg cameo. Do you think it's possible?
Yeah, I think it's possible. For everything that I said about that. Yeah, we've had two mayors host, plus Bloomberg coming in a couple of times in the early 2010s. So yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility. If Sliwa wins, I don't think he'll be on that.
Yes, of course. He'll be dealing with the Yakuza. But Amanda, what do you think? Do you think we're going to see Zoran next week?
I don't think it's next week. I think it's eventually, but I don't think it's next week. I think that man was out until 3 a.m. on Saturday. He was seen at the gay bar. He was seen at the club. He was out and about on Saturday. He was doing what? Talking to the people. So I think next week, he doesn't want to be talking to nobody. He wants to be inside, in bed. He's sleeping, because he just ran for mayor of New York City. So I think eventually, yes, but I think also it'll be after he's in office and he's seated, because I think there's probably things that he wants to make sure he's got priorities. But yeah. Eventually.
And when is that? Is that like the president where they don't get into office until January? Is that how that works?
I believe so. I truly can't. I don't know past this point. I just vote.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens there. Obviously, that's a story to be determined. But yeah, I thought this was a fascinating cold open that we had this week. All right, let's dive into the episode and talk about other things that we saw from this episode that we want to cover. So, Zoe, I'm going to send it over to you for our first sketch of the night.
Okay, sorry to keep us talking about politics, but I wanted to talk about the Property Brothers sketch, which is where the Property Brothers are renovating the White House. I thought this was a good use of the host because when you look at Miles Teller, I'm like, okay, yeah, you could be a Property Brother. I thought he was comfortable in the role, and I thought that he played well off of himself. He was like giving Lindsay Lohan playing the twins. And then I also think we need to shout out Chloe for her Melania impersonation. It's so strong. It's not as frequent that we see her as we see JJ as Trump, but I think it's really well matched. I think she's spot on and hilarious. I usually get Trump fatigue, but in this sketch, I thought it was funny. And I mean, sad as it is the White House is being demolished, but I thought it was funny and timely and a good use of the host.
It really reminded me a lot of the White POTUS. I said that on Saturday night. It was just great to get something that they have constantly about your comment about Chloe. Rewatching this, it was hard to pick up because it really is like dominated by James's Trump. But I think Chloe's impression of Melania is better than Cecily's. And Cecily like had a really, like, I guess I can call it iconic Melania from Trump's first term. But this impression was outstanding that Chloe had here. And it obviously very well complemented what we saw as James, who was having a crazy time just talking to Miles as both property.
So which one of you is married to New Girl and which one of you is the gay?
It's just really all out there. Can say anything he wants in this. But yeah, a lot of crazy takes here from JJ's Trump. Bill, what did you think of the Property Brothers sketch?
I mean, it's probably better than Cecily's. Is it better than Paris Hilton's? I guess that would be the real question. Boy, oh boy, I really enjoyed this. And it just kind of reminded me that if we're going to get Trump every week, I would love to see different pieces like this outside of the cold open. I think the pre-tape works really well with the way Zhazh does this impression. It's really interesting to see how, you know, he's dancing around. Then he's talking about going to Home Depot, realizing he had deported everybody, and he's screaming, "I need all the whites. Where are all the people from Norway and Sweden?" You know, and Miles does really well. This is one of his best moments of the night, playing dual roles here. You knew they had to cover this with all the press that it's getting, and rightfully so, destroying the White House as they are. So having a way to kind of cover that in a way like this outside of a long sketch instead, and just having it in a pre-tape makes a lot of sense here.
I also thought that like the cinematography of this whole thing was pretty fantastic. Like those sets were unbelievable that they built for the White House with them walking around. I thought that the graphic design work of like them showing the changes that they're going to make at the Rose Garden and all of that were really well done. Amanda, how did you feel about our Property Brothers pre-tape?
I thought this was a great idea, a great concept. And I would have taken Trump out of the cold open and just used it here because, like Bill said, like I enjoy seeing that out of the context of just the cold open. Like we get it, we get the point. There's other things that we could talk about with this man and like the insane things that are happening. And I also think that Miles Teller really, really, really carried this. Like, I think that like it was very unexpected because it's when you do a double duty performance, that's a lot because you're basically acting against, in this case, you're acting against yourself and two other people instead of just two other people. So you have to react, and he did a great job. But I think about Chloe, it reminded me of how rarely we really see her do impressions anymore. And it was nice to see a really solid Chloe Fineman impression in a time of this show where I've personally been wondering where she fits in. And that performance was like, there it is. She reminded me at least of why she's still in this cast. So yeah, I really liked this. If Zoe hadn't picked this is what I was going to pick. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree about Chloe. I do think she's a pretty solid impressionist and plays really well in supporting roles. I've been saying that for a couple of years now. I think that, placing her as the face of the show was never the right path for her. I think she's the type of person that really does well supporting others in sketches. And naturally, she fit into that role as, the being at James's side during the sketch. But I think one of the things I really like about, when you put the Trump impression from James in a sketch that isn't the cold open, is that it sort of forces him to question himself more than if you have him in the cold open, where he's just is playing pompous ass the entire time. I think that in this version of the Trump impression, he's able to walk around and admit things and question himself more than usual. So, for example, when he does this,
It's very important to be happy these days. Really dark stuff happening in the world. Some of it me.
you don't get that as much during his rants in the cold open. And I think that this allows you to do that, where he's walking around. He's still doing, it's a very similar impression, but still doing that in a different way. There's more tone shifts, I think, that we get in the way that he's talking. But of course, my favorite moment of this, which had to be one of the absolute lines of the episode, is when we're talking about them destroying the movie theater.
Bill Clinton called it the best perk of being president. Bill Clinton said that. He said that the best perk for him was the movie theater.
And even then, Bill, I've never heard James laugh in a sketch, purposely. I wasn't he broke. His character laughed in a sketch, and it was so different from anything I've ever heard, Trump or not.
Yeah, more layered with stuff like that, and seeing him laugh. The other thing I really like, which is more of a quiet moment, which we don't get from his Trump a lot, and obviously for good reason most of the time, but when they're showing him on the laptop and he just keeps pressing enlarge, and the property brother's like, well, you're gonna block, they can walk around. It's just this really quiet moment, and then he kind of goes into the MMA ring and he's like, we love the bum fights. So then we get back to what we see in a lot of the cold opens, but it's much more layered. There's much more going on, a lot more nuance with the character, with the person, that's really hard to put in that quiet box.
Yeah, and I'll also say this, I think that there's a lot of people who criticize Saturday Night Live nowadays for not being more mean-spirited with the impression and sort of leaving him off the hook. But I think that SNL in their nature has always built political impressions to be like what we saw from James in this, where whether you support him or whether you don't, you can still laugh at that sketch. And I feel like it was one of those things where, yes, there's a lot of hypocrisy that if you don't support Trump, you're clearly seeing in the impression. But I think as a supporter, anyone who supports him, I think could still watch it and be like, well, that's our crazy guy. And I think that is something that SNL has sort of done in a way for generations. So I could see why this ended up being a pretty beloved pre-tape. I saw a lot of people on social media who were like, well, the classic line, SNL hasn't been funny in years, but this was a very funny sketch. And I think that's what we got with this Property Brothers pre-tape. So anything else on this one? All right, Bill, let's send it over to you for the next sketch you want to talk about.
I want to talk about, we already talked about sports being a big part of my thing with SNL, and the NHL PSA was something that really spoke to me. Not necessarily for the jokes, but part of the theme of what we've talked about through 4 episodes is Ashley, just having this monster sophomore season. And tonight, and this is one of the first examples of it, her and Dismukes, no more Zhazmukes, it's Ashmukes. This was freaking amazing what these two were doing with a very slim premise of making fun of the Nashville Predators are named. You can't say Predator by itself because it sounds like this. This could have been a fucking disaster. And it wasn't. It really wasn't, because of what Dismukes and Ashley were doing. Ashley in this sketch, being Midge, reminded me, it was like if Jan and Phil had a baby. Like, she was channeling both of those icons of SNL with her facial expressions, with what she was saying, just the way she was doing it. And Dismukes was just building off of that. it felt like Dismukes has been waiting for somebody like this to play with for a long time. And he really showed it tonight a couple other times that we could talk about over the course of the episode. But yeah, that's why I chose this one. And Miles was good here too. I mean, this is not an easy role to play as you're being put in this Jeff Montgomery role.
Well, my absolute headline of the episode was the pairing of Ashley and Andrew. They continue to show us how they are just crushing the show, and how beneficial it is for Andrew to have Ashley by his side, who, and we all love Andrew. We think he's great, but it's just so cool to see one performer elevating another performer. I just want to put a pin in that slightly because I know it's part of the sketch discussion, but there's so much to talk about there with Andrew and Ashley that I just want to do the sketch a little bit of justice and talk about how we feel like the NHL PSA sketch went overall. So Amanda, how did you feel about this one?
I thought that this was, like Bill said, it was a weak premise. It was like they wrote down Nashville Predators on a whiteboard and they said, there we go. That's the joke. That's the joke. And I genuinely, I had a good tee-hee-hee. I was laughing. They were being clever. I appreciated that this was a premise that was built upon. And I think earlier in the episode, we were discussing about Miles Teller, his character and representation in this cast. This is what I like to describe as he's the hot guy who did sports and also did theater. And they don't have that. They don't have that on SNL right now. It's like, if it is an archetype, we all knew that guy. And he's so charming, and he looks, and he has stage presence. I couldn't stop looking at that man in this every time he was on screen, because he was responding, he was reacting, it felt like, yes, he was reading off of cue cards, but this was an actor playing someone who was reading off of a teleprompter, which is actually really crazy acting. Like, there's so many layers of that. It's a parfait of acting. I think that, and yes, going back to Ashley, my God, what a star. She's carrying it. Like, her back is going to hurt every week because the way she is carrying the show on her back. She is delivering. She's the male. Like, I can't get over her. I'm going to be doing like this all the rest of the episode, also just about her. I'm feral for her. Never leave this show, Ashley Padilla. Never.
I know. I'm so excited to talk about it but it has been something I've been talking about every week. So I'm just trying to give everyone else their due as much as I can, and then I really do want to talk about Ashley in a second. So just Zoe, let me go to you first. What do you think about this NHL PSA sketch? Did it work for you?
Unfortunately, John, all I want to talk about is Ashley, but
then let's just do it. Okay, so fine, go ahead.
Well, I just when I watched it again, at first I was just regular cringe humor. I'm like, okay, I get it, the Predators sports team, ha ha ha. But then I watched it again, and I was like, okay, Andrew and Ashley, like, okay, eat it up. So that's what I really appreciated about this sketch. But in order to respect you as our fearless leader, I would like to use this moment to say, like, I appreciated seeing Ben Marshall in this sketch and in a lot of sketches this episode. I'm loving seeing him so frequently this season. So those are my thoughts about the NHL sketch.
Yes, I agree. So when we talk about the next sketch, we'll talk about Ben, because I will say one of the major notes I had for this episode was that the emergence of Ashley and Andrew and everything that's been going on with the two of them probably has overshadowed how great of a start Ben has had and how well he's fit into being part of this cast. So we'll certainly talk about that in a moment. Overall, for the sketch, I'll just say first off, I grew up with hockey all around me in a city that is like hockey crazy. So I always find it really funny whenever they do a hockey sketch, even going back to Chance the Rapper's hockey sketches and things like that, where he's let's do that hockey. But I really love this. I thought it was really fun. It is the most basic premise on paper, but this doesn't work if you don't have Andrew and Ashley on the left stabilizing the sketch, and then Miles on the right taking this over and doing all his lines really well. Specifically where he's going to start with this.
I'm a predator in my community.
And then he'll end it with this.
I'm Chase Kidd, right-wing predator.
As we build up to that moment from him. And it really does require someone who just has the gravitas to be able to just say the lines to camera, pull it off, and then not give anything away, as he is just like playing the role of somebody who doesn't understand why he's being put in this position. So I thought that was great. But you guys are so right. Andrew and Ashley in this really helped what could have been a rough sketch, especially when they are just describing all of the commercials that Andrew has previously worked on as the way to justify why this one's going to be okay. And then when they ask for a rewrite, this is what happens.
Let's get the writers in here,
okay.
see if they have any other ideas.
Good.
Hey, writers here, we don't have any other ideas. Do the lines.
Just like, and this is before in the episode we see like a very Andrew Dismukes type sketch in that voice, but like again he changes and gets sort of like that groggly like start yelling Andrew where he's like, hey, and just always makes me laugh when he does stuff like that. And the pairing of the two of them is fantastic. Bill, you compared Ashley to a mix of Phil and Jan. I think she's a mix of Kristen and Jan. I really think that, you know, there's this like sweet side to her that the acting you get to see. She's one of the best actresses already that's ever been on the show. It reminds me when Jan comes on with like all the Southern sketches she used to do. I think of her at the diner with Alec that we talked about this summer. She has a lot of those things in her. And then she also has that like Groundlings character energy that you guys saw from somebody like Kristen. I think it's absolutely fantastic, everything she's doing. I just want to throw out some anecdotes here that I think are interesting, and then maybe we'll just have this full discussion on Ashley 4 episodes into the season, who continues to crush. But she currently leads the cast in sketch appearances with 21 sketches for the entire season. She's the first cast member in 7 years to have 21 sketches through 4 episodes. So that's the most since season 44, where Keenan and Beck did that. She is the first second-year cast member to lead the cast in sketch appearances through 4 episodes since Bill Hader did it in season 32. So you have to go back almost 20 years since Bill did that. And then it was Amy and Will and Daryl did it as rookies in 21. But like, you know, kind of crazy. She's the first featured player to lead the cast in sketch appearances through 4 episodes since ever. No one's ever done it in the history of the show. There's an argument that through 4 episodes, 20% of the way through the season, that she is on pace to have the greatest season for a featured player in the history of the show. It is unbelievable what we are seeing. And Bill, this is why I watch this show, for people to become stars and do things like Ashley is doing. Your thoughts?
Wow. I mean, those numbers are amazing. I feel like I'm on the Wednesday show here with our friend Mike.
Sorry, Mike.
Woo, wow, that's some good stuff. I've been digesting stats for like 4 weeks with the playoffs and the World Series, and that's a huge one. That's incredible. I've got to say, and I'm not the first one to say it, and we've talked about it on here in various forms. If she's not part of the main cast by the time they come back from Christmas break, then what the hell are we doing here? Because she's insane with what she's doing. We knew there was going to be this vacuum with Heidi and Ego, who were carrying the female side of the cast for the last few years. But I mean, this is beyond anyone's expectations, including ours, I think, what she's been able to do. And she's not just showing up in a sketch for 5 seconds. She's carrying most of these sketches, those 21 that you mentioned. So yeah, I mean, there's so much to love about what she's doing here. I'm always going to be a Groundlings guy. I love the people who I love from the show the most typically do come from Groundlings, and she's just another example of that. It's just amazing.
Look, Amanda, we've been doing coverage of the show for 6 years. I honestly don't think I've been excited about a cast member in this long since we started. It's been fascinating to get to see her do this week to week. And I try and be as objective as possible. I think she's a really nice person. I met her once, super nice, but like, I don't have a stake in the game. Like, I'm watching this and I'm seeing it, both the data and the eye test, and I'm seeing greatness here. How do you feel about it?
I got chills hearing all of those stats. Like, I was just like, I was like, that is in 51 seasons. Like, it's wild to hear numbers where you're like, that's just incredible. Like, and I hope that she feels this. If you're out there listening, Ashley, like, I'm so proud of you, girl. Like I'm so proud of you. Like, that's so impressive. And I mean, you were saying earlier, making comparisons, I think that she reminds me of Jane Curtin and what Jane Curtin could have, like, was not really able to do. and like the opportunities. And she reminds me of Jan and Jane if they had a baby. Like she's just, but I just can't. I can't stop. I can't.
All right,
I
so
love her.
Zoe, let me give you the final word on this portion of the podcast. How did you feel about Ashley and her season that we're seeing right now here, 4 episodes into 51?
I mean, she's a star. When we first saw her, I predicted her to be a utility player, someone who can be in any sketch and kind of play any role. But seeing her as a star who's carrying sketches, who has the charisma, who can go big, who can bring it in smaller, I think, and it like hurts my heart, but like I think that they had to have confidence in her to be able to let Heidi go. And I like no one's going to replace anyone and everyone's going to have their own legacy. But I think she's a legend in the making.
Absolutely. And, you know, this is just one of the sketches that we talked about from her episode this week. So let's keep going, Amanda, and let's talk about the next sketch that you want to touch on.
Okay. I want to talk about this sketch. What was it called? The true crime my wife is missing sketch.
The Gone with Several Traces pre-tape.
Gone with Several Traces. As a person who has my own weird kind of conflicting feelings about true crime, and I feel like sometimes it can be a well that's easily dipped in for a pre-tape style, I think that they're going back to Miles Teller's, himbo energy. This is exactly the kind of place that he needs to be. I think that every single one of them, the men especially, were so fantastic. But they started cutting away to the wives, and you just saw the feelings of exasperation. As soon as I told him I was going away for the weekend, I was just like, yeah, absolutely. This was my childhood. Like I was watching my parents, and I really appreciated this. And I think that and Ben Marshall was just, when he pulled the cup of noodles out of the microwave on fire, and it's the kind of, I knew where it was going. I knew she was going to do crazy things with a fire extinguisher, but there is few things funnier than fire extinguisher humor. Fire extinguishers are very serious. Fires are not funny. But fire extinguisher humor, everyone laughs. Everyone has a tee-hee-hee. So I think that this was, in my opinion, one of the strongest of the evening, and a really great showcase for the host, who blended in perfectly in the concept. Honestly, I'm actually kind of shocked they didn't save this for Glenn Powell in a few weeks, but we'll see. Because it feels like that's something that he would also be kind of perfect in this. But I will say it was a little bit too long. The jokes we get at a certain point, but yeah, I think this is great.
I mean, it was so funny. It was also like very relatable for a lot of people. I do think that Miles may have been better for this personally than Glenn Powell, because I think that Miles has maybe a little bit more range in sketch work. I mean, we haven't seen Glenn host the show, but I feel like he's just like we saw him briefly in the Sydney Sweeney episode. I've seen him in projects. Like, I just feel like Miles, maybe on a second time hosting, familiar with the show, could pull like a line like this off, which I think is very hard to pull off.
Are you worried about them making like Jacob Elordying Glenn Powell? Because that's my concern.
Get that name out of your mouth, man.
No, I think Elordy was clearly not a good host of this show. Like one of the worst choices we've had in modern times. But yeah, but I don't know that Glenn Powell will be that, because I can't judge before I see them on paper.
See.
Like I see them
That's
on the
true.
screen. Yeah,
we'll think about it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. We'll talk about that when we get there. Look, I'm really, really excited about what we saw here in this sketch, especially that this was a sketch that was partially written by Ben Marshall. We talked about him briefly before, but I think he's also having a really strong season. He had a pretty weak premiere. I went on by the numbers that week. I said, like, hey, if you're going to bring Ben in the cast and you're going to make this big deal about this guy who came in as a writer, was producing shorts, and now we're moving him as the chosen one from PDD to join the cast, you got to get him in the show. And every week we've seen him. He's been fantastic. He's been all over a bunch of sketches. Like, he really feels like he's starting to take maybe like a bit of that Mikey Day role, where if you're going to have one like white male in a sketch, Ben may be the first guy that they go to. But I also think that he has a good amount of range, and it's been fun seeing him in other things that don't have the PDD pace. Zoe, how do you feel about both Ben and Are Gone with Several Traces pre-tape?
I love Ben. I think he had a lot of great physical comedy in this sketch. I like that he was oh my gosh, I'm blanking. I like that he was paired with Sarah. I thought that she was like I thought she brought a lot of comedy into it with her section of taking a shower, having to go to the bathroom, all those things. I thought it was a unique take on two things that are not unique, true crime, and then, oh, my husband's so dumb, he doesn't even know where I am. But I thought that bringing it together, it really came well. And if I couldn't have chosen the White House sketch, this is the sketch that I would have chosen. So I like that we're flipping and flopping Amanda. But I also think that Miles Teller was the choice for this because he looks like Ben Affleck in Gone Girl.
That's such a good point. I watched Gone Girl on Friday. What a good point. Absolutely. He looks like a man that you would think would kill his wife.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I showed this sketch to my wife last night, and she's like, this is a Gone Girl parody, and I was like, oh shoot, that was dumb. That like went over my head on Saturday. But yeah, regardless of that, I don't think you needed that to get what's going on here. And Bill, you've been a married man for a long time, so I feel like there had to be something here that was relatable to you.
Yeah, except in my house, that script is flipped because I'm always the one with the family calendar. And did you look at this? Did you see where we're going this time? And my wife will completely forget what I'm talking about 5 minutes later. But yes, as a man, I'm insulted that they can make us feel so stupid. No, I'm just kidding. I really did enjoy this a lot. Ben, I mean, listen, he was the king of pre-tapes, and seeing him in this role, he's been great in live sketches too. But it was almost like a comfortable blanket to have Ben back in a pre-tape like this. Him shooting the mirror when he thought somebody was, and then when they're interviewing Keenan in the squad room, and they're like, right after Ashley, you know where I'm going, right? Poughkeepsie, yeah, baby, I'm good. The boob store.
Yeah, can I play that line? I thought that line was so fantastic.
I know this is probably wrong, but maybe the boob store?
Keenan had a great episode as well. I mean,
really
kicking
did.
off that cold open, running a game show, then having a big role in this. Like Keenan just, insert meme of the Undertaker rising from the coffin. Like he came out of nowhere.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and that made me feel good knowing I drafted him this year. But yeah, Keenan was great. I think, Veronica, again, there's so many accolades to go around for so far in this season. I think we've had a really good start to the season. And Veronica is another name that we talked about a lot in preseason, and how good is she going to be? And she's been really good, overshadowed a little by everything that Ashley's been doing. But she's having a very solid freshman year too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think that, again, probably the pairing of Andrew and Ashley, especially in this episode, especially because we saw them front and center on Weekend Update, continue to overshadow both Ben, but the pairing of Ben and Veronica, who have been a really big thing on social media. They've been hanging out a lot. There's a lot of like in each other's Instagram stories. You see them writing together and things like that. I think that it's kind of cool and does remind me a little bit of previous golden era casts, where you have these pairings of cast members that really work well together. And I think that just as much as we're talking about the pairing of Andrew and Ashley, who were very dominant in this episode, I think we could see a lot of Ben and Veronica episodes in the future. She has a little bit more work to go as a rookie, but I think that the fact that Ben has already had that experience working at the show, I think that this could be a fascinating pairing moving forward. So I'm excited to see what we're going to get from Ben and Veronica. But I think, again, the pre-tapes were really strong this night. So overall, feeling really good about that. So we talked about Andrew Dismukes a little bit before. I want to talk about this Gargoyle sketch that we got. And I think that a major topic that we discussed in season 50 was just that how exciting it was to see so much of Andrew, that it really felt like the show trusts him, relies on him to be one of the leads of this cast. but that they're not necessarily hitting us with the Andrew Dismuke style humor that we were getting a lot of in season 49. We did have a couple of things in season 50, like the Hey Soul Sister stuff, but it was nothing to the extent of what we got previously. And the fact that, my favorite sketch of the season up to this point was the Bilson and Lieberman, all of the lawyers together in Amy Poehler's episode, which was, a very like Andrew style humor than with James. And then we get this, which I don't think had the same level of quality, but I think Dana in our patron Discord pointed out that whenever she sees Andrew in a mustache, she knows that we're about to get something very silly. And I love the lead up here of this like very serious cop sketch where we're trying to track down the murderer and all of the reporters are asking questions before it leads to Andrew as Dave Allen, Daily Gazette, who just wants to talk about Gargirl, his DC comic superhero that he needs to answers for, and it turns into a whole conversation about that. And I think that the coolest part of all this, in a night full of Andrew and Ashley, and we didn't talk about Update yet, but the fact that we have this moment where, like, if you're watching a basketball game, I'll use a sports analogy here, sorry for non-sports fans, but if you're watching a basketball game and like someone's going off and they have like 40 points and they're having like the game, and then they're just like, you know what, I'm just gonna throw up the ball. And then we get this moment where Ashley Padilla like jumps up and she just goes,
Hey, you shut up, you! You want to say nothing about who wants to know. We talking about what we all talking about. You did this, so now you shut up now, you!
and just slams it down. And it's like, this is SNL. That is exactly what I look for when I watch a show, and it gave me a great laugh. I really did enjoy this one post update. Zoe, how did you feel about Gargirl?
I thought it was weird. I thought it was random, but it's that that Dismuke's like silliness that we love him for. So it was not like, I don't think it's a sketch I'll remember for the rest of my life, but it is one of those sketches where I was like, okay, Andrew and Ashley, like they can match each other, and I just really appreciate seeing that. And I love when Andrew gets to be Andrew, and we get to see the creativity in strange and unique ways.
Bill, how did you feel about the return of a very Andrew Dismuke type sketch with all of these reporters asking questions in Gargirl?
Yeah, again, just like the NHL one, like this had potential for going sideways really quickly. I mean, the silly names and the today, tomorrow, the daily, whatever the hell, and even the names of the reporters like Marcus Spitz, and this could have just been like an Edith Puthie that didn't really work. But it was saved by Dismuke's constantly talking about himself, changing from talking about what newspaper he was with to saying like the voice of a generation. And then Ashley, yeah, perfectly put, John. I love that. The escalation that we crave, like this was it. It was not seeing that coming from anywhere. You thought Dismuke was the crazy one in this situation. Then all of a sudden the straight-laced Ashley, boom, hits him with the right hook, and it just carries it. Yeah, and then Miles, I mean, he doesn't have a lot to do here other than being that New York cop, kind of role that we're used to with somebody like him or Zhazh. But yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot.
Amanda, I'll head over to you. What do you think of this Gargirl sketch that we saw from Andrew? Did you enjoy this one?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I had a good chuckle watching it. I think that, what I love about a Dismuke's piece, especially, is that like he understands that with a story, with a piece like this, the straighter you play it as a character, the funnier it is. And he just is so good at. I understood this man's world. I got it. I don't want to be around this man, but I understand who this man is, and I think that's one of my favorite parts about watching him do his thing, and then seeing somebody who is so outlandish get truly escalated, like somebody taking that and just saying, let me do that and double it and send it right back. I think I love to see a good volley, and this was a perfect volley, a great volley piece, and it bounced around perfectly. I enjoyed it. Would it be in my top 5 in the episode? Probably not, but I enjoyed watching it, and because the rest of the episode, I mean, there's one more after this, and I was like, oh, cool. So
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I also think that there was a fun extra game in here where everyone was saying their names and which publications they were from, and they got sillier as they went on. Where eventually we got to Tommy, who was like Dick Musk, tomorrow to Daily, and they and they kept finding other ways to involve them in here. And I also love, again, this is one of those sketches that by design you have James and Miles who are facing the camera, and then you have on a different set all of the reporters. So they're not actually facing and looking at each other. So you have these performances where Andrew is asking questions to nobody and Ashley is yelling at nobody, but they're responding from a different angle on a set. So I think you just have to picture that if you're not in the live studio, how that actually is being put together so they could properly film both sides. And I do love that what they did with this, where you get like the pack of reporters with a lot of extras who are all facing in this world of the sketch, James and Miles, but then turn inwards at each other as they get so obsessed with what's happening with Gargoyle. So I think that they're just like little things that I really enjoyed about the writing of this one. And very interesting note here. I want to call out Ali Levitan, who was working with Andrew, because Andrew worked a lot with other writers the last few years, and I really felt like we were sort of missing someone to help like hone Andrew's voice and get it in sketches. And I wonder Ali, as a second year writer, might be actually working towards a good relationship with him. So that's something to keep an eye on. I also forgot to mention earlier another writing point that I wanted to bring up. But when we were talking about the Gone with Several Traces pre-tape, that was partially written by Jimmy and Kara, Jimmy Fowley and Kara O'Sullivan, who I think should get some credit for some of the work that they put in this season. I think that, they worked a lot with Heidi, Chloe in the last few seasons, and Bowen. But I think that, with Heidi not being at the show anymore, and Heidi was the one who brought Jimmy in, I think maybe it allowed them to expand into other areas. And I really feel like some of the writing that they've done this season has been pretty good. They worked on that appliance jingle sketch last week with Veronica, the Miss Lycus in the Amy Poehler episode. They had that cut sketch, Tall Plain Boyfriend. And then in this one, they had the game show, What Did I Do Last Night? And again, this pre-tape. Like, I think they've had a pretty solid season so far. So I just want to send some credit their way as well. All right, let's go around the roundtable and talk about anything else from this episode that we want to cover in our rapid fire segment. So Zoe, I'll start with you.
Okay, well, I get to go first. So we want to talk about the update piece with Ashley and Andrew. We've been yapping about them all night, but I thought that they had great chemistry in that, and it was just a funny concept. So that's what I wanted to talk about, to mention.
Yes, for sure. Bill, what about you? Anything else you want to talk about?
I have to point out with this final sketch that we got. I mean, maybe it was mentioned on a Hot Take show. I was a little busy with the World Series celebration. Sorry, I haven't seen that yet. But I mean, this was just freaking Il Cantori again. Like, what? I don't understand what happened here. It was just kind of the same thing with them, gooning on the wife and ignoring the guy, and then eventually just kind of throwing salad at Mikey. Very strange choice to bring back a 30-year-old sketch and not have Dana Carvey in the building. I mean, just bring him back and do Bellissima if you're going to do something like this. It could have been very funny, and probably anybody under 25 hasn't even seen that one, so maybe it's just me, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I brought up the same thing on Saturday night. I think that this was, Marcelo hadn't appeared in the episode until this sketch. I think they wanted to get Marcelo on screen. He's obviously a big part of their cast, and they feel like they needed that moment. However, this was very similar to a sketch that got pretty famous, and it was weird that they did basically the same concept. Like there's a lot of times where we've gone on the shows, on the Hot Take shows, the Roundtable, and talked about sketches that are very similar to past ones, but this was like almost exactly the same. So it was a little bit weird for me. I will say this line,
Get the fuck out!
I saw like people going crazy online thinking that there was some sort of swearing in there. So I thought at least that was fun. And I think Keenan, for having a very good night, had a good role walking in.
What's your problem?
As he talked to Mikey. So it was a good stuff from Keenan. Zoe, I meant to say that I want to circle back to that update piece. So I didn't mean to ignore your point there, because I do think that there's something interesting to talk about there as well. Amanda, I will go to you also for any rapid fire moments you want to talk about.
I just want to say, in an episode that was genuinely pretty strong, I would really say, like, of all the entire season, this is the most cohesive episode. I don't want to not point out how really halfway decent that newsroom sketch was. Like, we don't get a lot of background humor. I love a background humor sketch, and I'm glad that like the show sometimes does this. And it was great because you were just sitting in anticipation. And sometimes I love humor rooted in just a fever where you know it's building towards something. And yeah, great on the background cast. And I just want to know how they got that printer to do all those papers for Jane when it was just like spitting out paper. That was incredible. Wow. What a sketch. It was a good one.
Yeah, I said that it reminded me a lot of the sketches we saw with pre-tapes the last few years of a conversation between two people and then things are happening behind them, except this was in live sketch form. So it was kind of like the Varsity Valley stuff. So this was kind of cool to have it in this form. I don't know. I made the argument on Saturday that I didn't love Chloe and Keenan as the front-facing people because I felt like they were almost too reactive to what was happening behind them. And if you're going to have... you know, the sort of a premise where we're supposed to be like incredibly interested in what's happening behind two people as they're talking, then the front people end up just becoming like a lot of white noise for me. And I think they were almost too like much trying to get us into what they were saying and how they were reacting. So that was like my issue with it, but I love that they attempted it. I'm so curious if you guys feel similar or not, or if I'm just like on this tangent by myself. So how did you feel?
No, I agree. I think it would have been stronger if Keenan and Chloe had just completely ignored or tried their best to ignore what was going on in the background so that we would have just really been clued into what was happening. And I also want to say that Mikey had some really great physical comedy in that sketch. It reminded me of when he walked into the spider web and was on Update that one time.
Yes, agreed. Bill, would you have put Keenan and Chloe as those people in the front, or is there anything different you would have done with it?
That was fine, but yeah, the point about them reacting to everything, I mean, that was what made Waffle House and the train station so great the last couple of years, where they don't really know what's going on behind them. So that would have been the way I went with that. And it felt like Keenan was playing the same character that he played in the Beavis Butthead sketch. Maybe I'm not positive on that, but it just, you know, the way he reacted to Miles looking at the manga anime, just the way his voice kind of articulated that, it really felt like that. But yeah, I mean, this was fine. And the physical comedy was great, like Zoe said.
Yeah, it really was. There was a lot of really funny moments in here. I think Bowen getting electrocuted was a great physical moment. And I saw Elizabeth in our chat just got to this before I did. But Jane was really good in this as well. She was really good at the printer, and also very quietly, she had a great moment in that game show sketch as one of the like prizes where she had to go and meet like an old friend from high school, and she comes out.
Hey, I'm sure you heard, but things haven't been going great for me. Anyway, thanks for agreeing to help me move.
I was like, honestly, like I good for Jane. Like maybe it just, you know, it took a lot slower of a start than we typically would have seen from a new person on this cast, but or new person at the show. But I do think that Jane has had some good moments the last couple of weeks. She did get cut from Update again, so hopefully we'll get to see that at some point in this run. All right, Zoe, I want to go back to what you said about the Weekend Update feature, which I think was, again, one of the most talked about moments from this episode is Andrew and Ashley appeared as two people who just hooked up. So, you know, we did the talk about Andrew and Ashley and how they're growing as cast members on the show. So I don't want to be too repetitive there, but I just want to say, as far as these characters are concerned, I think you know, the sexual tension that developed between the two of them on screen as they were using the government shutdown as euphemisms was so great. And I think that there was such great writing and full circle escalation on this, where they start off like coming out very tame.
My hair look okay?
You're perfect.
And then, you know, for me, one of the things I think that really does work about Ashley recently, and I think that Andrew picked this up as well, is like the use of dead air on screen. The pacing between lines is just very different from this, you know, last generation of cast members, but we get that here.
Hi.
Like how long she takes to reply with the hi. Of course, it will then escalate to the point where we get Ashley, you know, describing what it is like to go down this road.
Maybe the Republicans are scared because their government hasn't been opened in
a long time.
Right. And then of course the back, since Jason, and then who's Jason, Colin says, and he's not a man. But then we get this moment where Andrew's going to say, I think that Democrats and Republicans should just get together, which forces Ashley to respond and say, oh, get together. And he's like, well, I don't mean like get married or anything. And he's like, well, you did say I love you.
Well, then why did Democrats say I love you during door?
Which again is just such a crazy from where we started to where we finished moment here. But I think there was so much that went into this bill, including all of the things they were both saying, but also the way they looked. Ashley's like messed up hair, the fact that we're all going to be never looking at doors the same. This to me was my favorite part of this episode.
Yeah, this was great to see these two together again, right after what we had just seen. Yeah, the whole door thing, including Colin in everything. We didn't talk about Santos, but him pulling out Colin's wallet and him having the pictures of all the female cast members in his wallet.
Oh yeah, this is what he said.
Give me back my angels.
Colin has become such a foil, no matter who is sitting next to him. It used to just be, Sarah or Leslie. No, it doesn't matter who the characters are they're playing. Colin has to be included. Why Colin's dressing room out of all of them? Maybe he had the best door.
Maybe that's the case. Amanda, will you ever look at doors the same? And did you enjoy this correspondence from Andrew and Ashley on
Oh, the poor doors. Like, as they've seen so much, that hopefully they can like eternal sunshine it from them, I loved this, and I loved this. So I watched this like 4 times. There was so much to take in, and it was timed so well. Bringing in Colin is both a tortured victim and the absolute villain of this show. It depends on the time of the day, but he's just always up to no good. But I think that this is a pairing that is great. SNL, don't mess it up from here. Don't bring them back too much. Once a year, maybe. But you listen to me, okay? We're on the same team. But I also I love this concept, and I'm actually kind of shocked that they hadn't done it before, because it's so right there. It's yeah. I'm actually really jealous that I didn't even think of this. This is so good. I loved it. 10 out of 10. My favorite of the season so far.
It was good. And I'll also say, Bill, I think this was the most Jan like Ashley I've seen when like in this particular piece. Because I just think that Jan is the best in the history of the show at playing romantic pieces. And I think she was able to pull this off here. So that was really cool.
I love that.
Yeah. But yeah, ultimately, Zoe, I want to give you the last word on this because you did bring it up in the first place. And again, just this correspondence was interesting. I did have the one thought of like, yes, they love to pick on Colin, but perhaps it was even funnier in the meta sense of how Colin, has worked at the show for 20 years and met his future wife while she hosted the show. So there is that him and Scarlett have also spent a lot of time together at Saturday Night Live. But overall, what did you think of this piece?
I think everything excellent has been said. I appreciated it, and now I have Scarlett Johansson like door. Why did you say that?
That wasn't a good segue.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I had it in my notes, so I wanted to get it out while I could. But yes, Zoe, I'm happy that you did bring it up. Okay, let's talk about the MVP for this week of Saturday Night Live. So I'll go through the data from the episode. So we got Miles in 9 sketches. We've got appearances from Shane Gillis and Rami Youssef. Brandi Carlile with 2 rocking performances for her 4th time on the show in the last 5 years. We had for the repertory players, Keenan leading the way with 5 sketches, 3 sketches for Mikey, Chloe, Bowen, Andrew, and James, 2 for Sarah, and 1 for Marcelo at the end of the show. For the feature players, Ashley led the way with 5 sketches. Then we got 4 from Tommy, Ben, and Veronica, 3 from Cam, 2 from Jane, and 2 from Jeremy. So I'm going to ask you all what you think the top 3 vote getters were for the MVP for week number 4. Zoe, I'll start with you.
Okay. You said top 3?
Yeah, give me the top 3.
Okay, Queen Ashley is top, and then Andrew, and then I'm between Ben and Keenan, but I think I'm gonna go with Keenan because he was really sparkly that night.
Okay. All right. Sparkly. Bill, what do you think of the top three this week?
I think I'm going to go top two the same with Ashley and Dismukes, and then I'm going to put Miles here at number 3.
Okay. Miles gets into the number 3 spot for Bill and Amanda.
As usual, I'm twinning with Bill. We're
All
on
right,
the
so
same
you-
wavelength. I got it.
Cool. You got Ashley, Andrew, and Miles. So you guys came pretty close. Didn't nail the top 3, but you were circling right around it. Where the MVP vote getters for week number 4, we got Ashley Padilla in the top spot, second week in a row, just edges out Andrew Dismukes with a 31% to 29%. Really neck and neck all day between Ashley and Andrew. People voting for them as the top 2 players from this episode. Again, just fantastic stuff from the 2 of them. 14% of the vote goes to Ben Marshall in third place, who again is having a very solid first season as a cast member, 4 episodes in. Miles Teller, our host, with 8% of the vote, there at number 4. So pretty close, Amanda and Bill. He comes in at 4. And then Zoe, you did say Keenan number 3. He comes in at number 5 there with 5% of the vote. So our top 5 for week number 4, Ashley, Andrew, Ben, Miles, and Keenan. All right, let's see if Ashley can keep this up. 2 MVPs in a row there for Ashley Padilla. All right, let's turn our attention to the next week of shows, where we're expecting for the first time Nikki Glazer to come in and host Saturday Night Live. This has been a host that a lot of people have asked for many years, and I believe so has Nikki, who is a huge fan of Saturday Night Live. It's always really cool to get stand-ups at the show, especially female stand-ups coming in to host, and I'm excited to see what Nikki's going to do this week at Saturday Night Live. So Zoe, what are your thoughts and expectations for this week?
I'm excited for her. I think it was the Golden Globes that she hosted. That was really a shining moment for her. I think she's a very funny comedian, longtime comedian. So I think this is a long time coming. And I'm excited for her. And I hope that she can translate this to acting and sketch comedy. So I think some good stuff should be coming.
Bill, your thoughts on Nikki Glazer coming to host the show this weekend?
Yeah, one of my favorite comics out there for sure. Got to meet her a couple of years ago, saw her perform, and the first question I asked her, of course, is, when are you going to host SNL? And she said, as soon as they ask. So finally it got manifested. I think she's going to be great. Hopefully we see kind of what Amy Schumer did when she first came on to the show. I think it's going to be a fantastic episode.
Agreed. And I think she's hosting the Golden Globes this year as well. So I think she's set to have a really big year. Clearly is someone, sort of like, when Amy Schumer came to the show, people were very excited to see her host a few years back. And I think they were together in Trainwreck as well. So, it's one of those things where she just feels like such a natural fit for the show, Amanda.
I'm really excited. Actually, I didn't know it was her first. She'd never hosted before. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm really excited. I rarely am excited to see a monologue, but I'm really excited to watch hers. I think if they give her the time, I think that will be time well spent, rare occurrence. And I think it's going to be great. And I'm really excited. I didn't know that it's been her dream. Even better. Oh, I hope they write her the house down boots next week. I think she deserves that.
I think she's going to have a good episode. I mean, I actually I prefer them to hire sketch performers versus stand-ups, but for me, I always find it really exciting when a new stand-up comes in and hosts the show. That's ingrained in the nature of the show, going back to George Carlin and Richard Pryor coming there, Robert Klein, performing at the show. I think that they add like a different sensibility, a way that, you think of jokes that are just like a little bit different from what the SNL writers get used to and sort of stuck in certain patterns. I think that they switch that up a lot. And I think that Nikki is just like so well built for this show. So my hope is that she's going to do great on Saturday. I don't want to put too much pressure on it, but I feel like she's the exact type of host that, if she does well enough, could be part of this new generation of hosts that gets close with these cast members. So I'm very excited for Nikki Glaser this weekend. Of course, we still have more coverage of the Miles Teller and Brandi Carlile episode with our By the Numbers show on Wednesday night, where Mike will be back to talk through all of the screen time and stats from this week of Saturday Night Live. So I'm sure Mike will have many more things to say about all of the cast members we talked about here tonight. And then I will be back on Saturday night after the Nikki Glaser and Somber episode to talk about all of the sketches that we saw. And then we'll have our season 31 rewatch podcast for the patrons continue next week when we're back for episode 5 of that series. So Zoe, thank you so much for joining us here tonight to talk about this episode. Really appreciate getting to hear from you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Anything you want to plug? Anything that's coming up for you?
I don't have anything to plug.
Okay.
But I love you guys.
Love you too. Happy to have you on, Zoe. All right, Bill, thanks for joining us here. Congratulations on an epic weekend for Bill Kenney.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. I don't get to do these roundtables nearly enough, but happy to be on with you and Zoe and Amanda as always. And yeah, I mean, if you have an off week in a couple weeks, go back and listen to John and I talk about all the great episodes from the history of SNL that we did all summer. And go Dodgers.
Yeah, yes, sir. Glad to be back with you on a Monday night. Bill and Amanda, I know you just got home, but I appreciate you jumping on the podcast here with us to hang out. It's always great to hear from you.
I'm just thrilled to be here. I'm always happy to be here. This is great. I was like very tired and now I'm not tired anymore. So thrilling. I'm very excited. Thank you for having me. And guys, if you're in New York or if you're having an election tomorrow in general, go vote. Go do that. That's what I'm plugging. The voting process. It's your right. If you can do it, go do it. People have died for the right to vote.
Absolutely. So, yeah, definitely something that will be a topic of conversation. I'm sure that on Wednesday night, Mike will be talking a little bit about the election results and how that may affect this weekend at SNL as well. So looking forward to listening to that one on Wednesday. All right. I want to thank Zoe and Amanda and Bill for being with us. I want to thank our chat for hanging out with us on this Monday night. Great lively discussion that we had here talking about this episode. And of course, Late Nighter for being the presenting partner for our show. On behalf of everyone here at the SNN, my name is Jon Schneider, and we will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.